Integration. It's one of those psychedelic buzzwords that gets mentioned often and everyone agrees it's important, but most people aren't even sure about what it even is. And that's kind of understandable, because it's not like there's some kind of official user manual for tripping balls. So today I'm going to try and break down what I think integration is and offer some advice on the kind of processes and activities that I do to bring those lessons out of the psychedelic world and make a positive change in my day-to-day life. So what is integration? Integration is a process by which we incorporate the lessons that we receive while in the psychedelic experience and bring it back into reality. Now these can be very simple things like stop being an asshole, to more complex things like it's time to move on past the death of a loved one. Now it's a common mistake to think that just by having the experience, then that in itself is where the healing happens, and this is wrong. And that's what I refer to as the magic bullet effect. This is the expectation that just by taking the psychedelic substance, that will fix your problem. You'll come out of the trip and whatever your problem was, it'll be gone. Now that's not realistic, and if you go into this with such a mindset, you're probably going to end up disappointed, because the psychedelic experience is just the first part of the journey towards healing. An analogy here would be that if you start off in the darkness, the psychedelic experience gives you a map, a flashlight, and a bit of a kick in the ass, but it's still you that is going to have to do all the legwork to get yourself to where you want to be. And this is where it gets tricky, because after a particularly profound experience, you are as high as fuck, especially with something like ayahuasca, where the euphoric afterglow can last for weeks afterwards, and many people think this is it, I am cured, and that this feeling is going to last forever. It's not. If you don't start doing some serious work towards integration, then what you will find is that you have come down, and all that positivity just slips away into some corner of your mind where you can't quite remember what it felt like, and you'll be back at square one. The first thing to do is to make time for yourself in order to work through this process. Now, I'm not talking about spending hours in solitude in a cave somewhere. It doesn't have to be anything that dramatic, but you need to have space where you can take stock of what is going on with you, because it's only by understanding where you are that you can work out where you're going. Personally, I try and take at least about 15 to 20 minutes each day just for me. No kids, no phone, no distractions, just to bring myself down away from the stress of work and listen to where I'm at. Maybe you have some kind of practice to help you focus. Personally, I like to do a small ritual with rapé, but meditation or breathwork would also be good. Now, another really useful tool to help with this is writing a journal. Just write down how you feel, positive and negative. Why do you think you might be feeling this way? What events happened that might have influenced your mood? Just the act of writing stuff out helps you process it and think about your situation. Now, don't get too hung up on the words. It doesn't have to be a literary masterpiece. Just splurge it out onto the pages, draw diagrams if it helps. Nobody other than you is likely ever going to read this, so fuck the presentation, just get it on the page. And you know, this was one thing I used to really get hung up on. If I was on retreat, I would see these really arty people who would write these beautiful poetry and rainbow landscapes in the journals, and that made me feel kind of inadequate with my scribblings of, today I feel like shit. It's like it just wasn't worth the ink. Just remember, it's not a competition, it's a tool. Just writing, today I feel like shit, can lead to, well, why do I feel like shit? Maybe I feel like shit because I was thinking about my dead mother. Okay, now we're getting somewhere, let's explore that. Writing it makes you think about it. Don't underestimate the journal. It's a good idea to have someone you can talk to about your experience, and this person needs to be a good listener, someone you can talk to without judgment, and they need to understand what you have been through. Now, when I say they need to understand what you've been through, I don't mean that this person needs to have drunk ayahuasca or taken any other psychedelic, but they need to understand that you have been through a powerful experience, and they also need to understand the reasons that you put yourself through it. They need this understanding because afterwards you might seem a bit weird, and this is something to tell them beforehand. You know, when I get back from this thing, I might seem a bit hyper or emotional, but this is to be expected. Please just be there for me. Now, for me, I'm quite lucky in this regard. I have my wife and a couple of friends who fully understand what's going on with this ayahuasca and psychedelic malarkey, And so I make time to chat with them just about where I'm at. Even if I think I'm okay, I still make the time for it. Some retreats offer integration chats as part of their aftercare service. Usually this takes place as a Skype call in the weeks following the retreat. So if you don't have someone in your close circle who you feel comfortable to, then consider looking to a third party, like a facilitator or a therapist. Regardless though, whether it's your wife or your friend or your therapist or whoever, talk to someone. Talk to someone frequently during the first couple of weeks of your integration. And one last thing about these conversations is to be honest. Psychedelics are really exploding now as a cultural zeitgeist. And so a lot of people feel pressure to have super positive, life-changing experiences with ego deaths and chakra alignments and third eye openings and everything was awesome and unicorns and rainbows and pixies. Yeah, it's not always like that. I've had experiences which were absolute fucking nightmares and left me thinking I had broken my brain. And if that's the case, then be honest. Your life is not an Instagram post. Set yourself some achievable goals that are in line with the thing that you are trying to change or improve. You want to kick that drug addiction? You're going to have to change some behaviours. You want to beat that eating disorder? You're going to need a strategy for gaining or losing weight. You want to snap out of that depression? You need a plan to stop yourself from falling back into your old patterns. Now again, there isn't a user manual for this, so the goals that you set will be individual to you. I can't tell you what they should be, but they need to be achievable. For example, you might want to take up meditation. Now a good goal would be to practice for 15 minutes a day, and a bad goal would be to instantly put yourself on a 3-week silent retreat. Keep your goals realistic. You don't want to set too many either. I tend to go for like around 4 or 5 things that I want to change in my life, and that will get me to where I want to be. Now that number also allows me to fail at some of these things, or maybe I just don't even get off the ground with them. That's fine too. Think of it this way, your life is a marathon, it's not a sprint. If you set yourself 5 goals and you achieve one of them, then you're 20% better than you were, and 20% is a big fucking number. So don't beat yourself up over failing. As long as you're going in the right direction, then you're making progress. Finally, we have habits. Usually, if there's something about us that we want to change, then we have some bad habits that support that behaviour. An extreme example of this would be a crack addict hanging out at a crack den. Now, even if that person gets clean, if they keep hanging out at the same place with the same people, receiving those same triggers to smoke crack, then yeah, no one's going to be surprised to see them off the tits on crack again. So you need to acknowledge what the things are that might set you off on the wrong path and actively avoid them. Maybe you need to change some of your relationships. Maybe you need a new job. Maybe you need to cut down on social media. Whatever it is, you need to be aware of it. Then you're going to need to fill the gaps in your life that will be created by these changes. You know, if your entire social life was hanging out in bars getting pissed, then suddenly you're going to end up with a shitload of free time. And while that sounds positive, the reality is that it can be really boring, which will end up with you craving your old vices. What are you going to do with all these extra hours in the day? If you don't prepare for it, then your mind's autopilot will soon start filling it up with shit. So you'll need to get yourself some new pastimes. And needless to say, you want to try and aim for something that's in line with your new healthy mindset. So swapping crack for heroin is probably not going to bring you any closer to enlightenment. So here is some suggestions of stuff that I do to stop myself slipping back into my bad habits. Meditation. Now when I first started meditating, I absolutely sucked at it. I just couldn't keep still. But with some help from an app, I can now do it for around about 15 minutes. And if anyone's looking for a recommendation on which meditation app to use, then I use one called the Waking Up course. I tried a few others before that, but the Waking Up course was the one that really clicked for me, so check that one out. Grow something. Get yourself some seeds, get yourself some pots, and just get your hands dirty. It doesn't have to be some kind of elaborate secret garden, just start with something simple on your windowsill. So I started growing psychedelic cacti. I grew them all from seed. I've got some San Pedros and some peyotes and some torches, and I have found it super rewarding just to watch these little organisms grow. Also, like an absolute dweeb, I paint designs on my cactus pots to make them look a little bit funkier, and also to give me another creative outlet. So this one here is my attempt to illustrate some of the kind of stuff that I see when I'm tripping. You know, I get a lot of this kind of Inca style imagery, which I thought might make the cacti feel more at home. Another thing I do is try and spend time in nature. I go for walks, or when I can, I go camping. And if you're walking, then try and do it without listening to music so that you can hear your own thoughts and process things as you go. And I do this channel. YouTube for me is a creative outlet and it keeps me busy. Similar to writing things in a notebook, when I talk to the camera, then I'm thinking and it helps me to process and understand how I feel about things. Now that's just what I do. It's not intended to be a definitive list, it's just some suggestions to get the ball rolling. So just to recap everything we've talked about. Make time for yourself. Have someone you can talk to and do so regularly. Set some achievable goals and change your bad habits. Now that's it for this video, but if any of you guys have got any extra tips or advice on how you do integration, then please leave it in the comments below. And as always, if you like what I'm doing here and want to continue being part of my journey, then hit that subscribe button and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.